Somewhere in America right now, a grown adult is screaming at an insurance adjuster because sunlight cracked their dashboard. Another one just found out racing isn't covered. A third is genuinely shocked that the contract they never opened had rules inside it. These are 69 real car insurance complaints, and every single one of them starts the same way. Nobody read the paperwork. 1. Somewhere in a suburban living room in Ohio, a woman is on the phone screaming that her insurance is a scam. Her teenage son took the family sedan to an actual drag strip, blew the transmission, and now she wants a check. The agent, on his fourth coffee of the morning, calmly explains that racing is excluded on every personal auto policy sold in this country. She calls him a criminal and hangs up. He files the note, sighs, and moves to the next call. It's only 10 in the morning. 2. Reading a policy is apparently a bigger ask than filing your taxes in Latin. Americans will happily sign a 50-page contract without glancing past page 1, then act personally betrayed when reality shows up. Car insurance is where this national habit hits its peak. Everyone assumes it covers everything, always, no matter what. It doesn't. It never did. And somewhere on page 17, in bold letters, the contract politely told you exactly so. 3. After 12 years of paying premiums without a single claim, a man in Kansas discovered a scratch on his bumper and demanded a brand new car. Not a repair, not a repaint. A full replacement. His reasoning was pure poetry. He'd been paying all this time, so the company clearly owed him something big. The adjuster explained that insurance is not a savings account. It's a bet. He didn't like that answer. He filed a formal complaint that the company was, quote, hoarding his money. 4. A guy in Phoenix once called his insurer to complain that his black leather seats had cracked in the summer heat. He genuinely believed comprehensive coverage should include sun damage on interior upholstery. The rep tried to explain that sunlight was not a covered peril. He escalated. He wrote a Yelp review. He tweeted at the CEO. Meanwhile, his car was still parked in the driveway, roasting at 115 degrees, doing exactly what a car does in that kind of weather. 5. There's a specific tone of voice claims adjusters recognize within the first 6 seconds of a call. It's the sound of someone who has already decided the company is trying to cheat them, and no explanation will change their mind. Adjusters get trained to handle it, but nothing really prepares you for a grown adult insisting that a curb they hit at 10 miles an hour is somehow the curb's fault. And yes, they will absolutely put that in writing if you ask them to. 6. When your car gets stolen from a Walmart parking lot in the middle of the afternoon, most people react with shock and then relief that they have insurance. Not this woman in Georgia. She was furious that the policy only paid the actual cash value of the vehicle instead of what she paid for it 4 years ago. She had never heard of depreciation. She had never heard of actual cash value. She had certainly never read the section of her policy where both of those things were explained in plain English. 7. Comprehensive versus collision is the single biggest source of confusion in car insurance, and adjusters would gladly print it on billboards if the company let them. Comprehensive is for things that happen to your car when it isn't moving. Collision is for when it is. A tree falling on your parked sedan is comprehensive. Backing into a mailbox is collision. 9 out of 10 complaint calls could end at that sentence. 9 out of 10 callers never let it get that far. 8. Down in a Florida panhandle town during hurricane season, an agent got a call from a man demanding to know why his flood coverage on the car didn't apply. She asked what happened. He said the water came up through the driveway and swallowed the sedan. She said, flooding is covered under comprehensive. He said, great, pay up. She said, sir, you dropped comprehensive last year to save $11 a month. There was a very long silence, followed by a very loud sentence you can't put on YouTube. 9. Some complaints aren't complaints. They're confessions in disguise. When somebody calls and starts with, I don't want to get in trouble, but the adjuster's pen is already moving. That opener has ended more claims than any exclusion clause in history. People will describe committing insurance fraud in real time, out loud, on a recorded line, and then get genuinely mad when it doesn't work out the way they'd hoped. 10. Nothing tests a claims adjuster's patience like the phrase, well, my last insurance covered it. Every policy is different. Every state has different minimums. Every carrier has different endorsements. Saying your last company did something is the insurance equivalent of telling a chef your grandma made the pasta differently. Cool story. Doesn't change what's on the plate, or in this case, what's on page 23 of the contract you personally signed. 11. Halfway through a routine claim call in Michigan, an adjuster realized the caller was describing an accident that happened while she was delivering pizzas for a side gig. The woman insisted she was covered because it was her personal car. The adjuster gently explained that personal auto policies exclude commercial use, including food delivery. She screamed that she wasn't a real delivery driver, she was just delivering pizzas for money. That distinction apparently was supposed to matter. 12. Named driver exclusions are one of the sneakiest parts of an auto policy, and yet people sign them constantly to save a few bucks on premiums. You literally list a person on paper and say, if this person drives my car and crashes it, I understand there is zero coverage. Then that person crashes the car. And suddenly the customer is stunned, betrayed, appalled that the company they told to exclude a driver actually did the thing they asked. 13. For reasons nobody at the company can fully explain, a man in Nevada expected his auto policy to cover the contents of his glove box after a break-in. Sunglasses, a wallet, a portable speaker, a small collection of expired lottery tickets he was convinced would eventually win. He wanted a payout on all of it. The adjuster explained that personal property inside the car falls under homeowners or renters insurance, not auto. He didn't have either. He blamed the auto company anyway. 14. Out on the app-based delivery circuit, rideshare drivers are their own special category of chaos. A regular personal auto policy usually excludes coverage the second you turn on the Uber or Lyft app. There's a specific rideshare endorsement you can add, and it costs almost nothing, but nobody buys it until something happens. Then they call, describe an accident that happened while a passenger was in the back seat, and act shocked that a personal policy doesn't cover a commercial gig. 15. Somewhere between the deductible page and the exclusions page, most customers just stop reading and start hoping. Hoping the paperwork will be nicer than the contract. Hoping the adjuster will make an exception. Hoping the CEO will personally call and waive the rules. Insurance doesn't work like that. Insurance is the least emotional business on earth. It's math. Cold, actuarial, deeply unromantic math printed on the exact pages nobody ever bothered to open. 16. Deductibles cause more meltdowns than any other single word in the industry. A guy in Texas once called to file a claim for a $500 dent and got quiet when the rep reminded him his deductible was $1,000. He asked if the company could just, cover it anyway, as a favor. For his loyalty. For being such a great customer, he said. He'd been with them for almost 7 months. The rep, professionally, did not laugh. 17. In the fine print of every personal auto policy in America, there is a section on modifications, and almost nobody reads it. Aftermarket wheels, engine tunes, lift kits, custom exhausts, cold air intakes, all of that needs to be declared. If you don't tell the company and the modification shows up in a claim, that claim can be denied or reduced. A guy in California once tried to claim on a heavily modified sports car he'd never mentioned. He also could not understand why they said no. 18. Gap insurance exists for one very specific reason. When you finance a new car, you owe more on the loan than the car is actually worth the second you drive off the lot. If you total it in year 1, the auto policy pays what the car is worth now, not what you owe. Gap covers the difference. People skip it constantly, then total the car, get the check, and cannot for the life of them understand why they still owe the bank $6,000. 19. After a small fender bender in a Target parking lot, a woman in Ohio spent 40 minutes on the phone insisting the other driver's insurance should replace her entire bumper, her rear quarter panel, her exhaust system, and her check engine light, which had been glowing on the dash for 2 years before the accident. The other driver's adjuster politely explained that insurance pays to restore, not to upgrade. She filed a complaint with the state insurance commissioner. She lost. 20. In the world of car insurance, lapses in coverage are the silent killers. Miss a payment, don't catch it in time, and the policy quietly cancels itself. Then you drive to the grocery store. Then somebody rear-ends you. Then you call to file a claim, and the rep has to be the one to tell you that on the date of the accident, you had exactly zero insurance. The number of people who scream that this is somehow the company's fault would honestly break your brain. 21. On a rainy Tuesday morning in Seattle, a man rear-ended a delivery van and immediately called his insurer to complain that the rain should count as an act of God. He wanted the whole thing filed under comprehensive so it wouldn't hit his rates. The adjuster explained that weather doesn't rewrite fault. If you hit the car in front of you, you followed too closely. Rain is not a legal defense, neither is fog. Neither is the sun being in your eyes at 4 in the afternoon. 22. Across the country in a strip mall office in New Jersey, an agent got a walk-in customer holding a printed screenshot from a Facebook group. The screenshot claimed insurance companies were required by federal law to pay for oil changes if the car was under an auto policy. She had highlighted the important parts in yellow. She demanded reimbursement for 6 years of oil changes. The agent had to explain gently that Facebook is not a legal source. She left angrier than she came in. 23. When it comes to totaled vehicles, most people have absolutely no idea how the number gets calculated. It isn't Kelley Blue Book. It isn't what your neighbor sold his for. It's a market-based valuation using comparable sales in your area, adjusted for mileage and condition. Adjusters use specific software for this. It is not personal. It is not a negotiation over dinner. And yet every single day somebody demands the adjuster explain why their car isn't worth twice what the data says. 24. There's a special breed of caller who opens with, "I pay you people every month," as if that sentence is a legal argument. It isn't. Paying premiums doesn't guarantee a payout any more than paying for a lottery ticket guarantees a jackpot. That's not how the product works. That's not how any insurance product has ever worked. But somewhere in the American brain, monthly payment has quietly translated into unlimited store credit, and no amount of explaining seems to fix it. 25. Down a dirt road in rural Alabama, a man once submitted a claim for a cow that had wandered onto his property and gently headbutted his pickup truck. He wanted collision coverage to pay. The adjuster explained that livestock collisions on your own land with your own livestock generally aren't covered the same way as hitting a deer on a public road. He asked what if it wasn't his cow. She asked whose cow it was. He said the cow lived at his house. She asked again whose cow it was. The call ended. 26. Umbrella policies exist precisely because auto liability limits run out faster than people expect. State minimums in some places are as low as $25,000 per person for bodily injury. One trip to a hospital in an ambulance can eat that in an afternoon. If you cause a serious injury and only carry the minimum, the injured party can come after your house, your savings, your future wages. This is a real, ugly fact of American driving. Almost nobody plans for it. 27. Somewhere in the middle of a routine renewal call, a woman in Colorado asked her agent why her premium went up after she got a speeding ticket. Not a warning, a ticket. She had signed the citation, paid the fine, and moved on. Then the surcharge landed on her policy, and she was outraged. She said the ticket was unfair, so the rate hike was also unfair. The agent explained the company doesn't grade tickets on fairness. It grades them on court records. The court said she was guilty. 28. For every legitimate complaint filed against a car insurer in this country, there are probably 50 complaints filed by people who didn't understand what they bought. State insurance departments track all of them. They investigate. They mediate. And the vast majority of the time, they side with the carrier because the contract said exactly what the carrier said it did. The paperwork wins because the paperwork was signed. Sometimes twice. Sometimes with initials on every page. 29. Not every claim is a lie, but a surprising number are optimistically decorated. A small ding becomes a major panel dent. A pre-existing crack in the windshield suddenly happened last Tuesday. A scratched rim was pristine until the car wash. Adjusters are trained to spot this stuff, and modern claims involve photos, timestamps, and shop reports. When a customer's story doesn't match the physical evidence, the claim gets adjusted downward. Then, of course, comes the complaint. 30. One of the most common complaints has nothing to do with money and everything to do with rental cars. People assume any auto policy automatically pays for a rental while their car is being repaired. It doesn't. Rental reimbursement is a separate optional coverage, usually a few dollars a month, and most customers decline it because it feels unnecessary. Until the day their car is in the shop for 3 weeks. Then it becomes the single most important line item in the contract. 31. A woman in Oregon called her insurer to complain that her policy hadn't paid for a new set of tires after she drove through construction and picked up a nail. She was firmly convinced tires were covered, not just on her policy, on all policies, everywhere, forever. She said she'd heard it from a coworker. The adjuster tried 3 different ways to explain that road hazard tire coverage is not part of a standard auto policy. She threatened to sue. The adjuster wished her well. 32. In cities with lots of street parking, hit-and-run claims are basically an entire subgenre of complaints. You park a perfectly fine car overnight, you come back to a mystery dent. There's no note, no witness, no camera footage. You file it under collision, pay your deductible, and move on. What people can't accept is that they still have to pay that deductible even though someone else clearly caused the damage. The company can't chase a ghost. The math still applies. 33. There is a very specific look agents get when a customer says, "So I lent my car to a friend," and that sentence rarely ends well. Permissive use is a real thing on most policies, meaning if you let someone drive your car with permission, coverage usually follows the vehicle. But if that friend didn't have a valid license, or was drinking, or was excluded on your policy, the whole safety net can vanish. And your friend, of course, is nowhere to be found the next morning. 34. Back in a small claims office in Missouri, an adjuster once received a photo of a car with what looked like teeth marks along the side. The customer claimed a bear had attacked his vehicle in his own driveway in suburban St. Louis. The photos showed marks that were suspiciously spaced like the tines of a rake. Comprehensive does cover animal damage, but only if the animal in question actually exists in the wild in your zip code. The claim was denied. The customer filed a formal grievance. 35. Roughly half of all rate complaints come from customers who move to a new zip code and suddenly discover their premium changed. They think it's arbitrary. It isn't. Rates are calculated by territory because claim frequency and severity vary wildly from one neighborhood to the next. Move from a quiet suburb to a dense city with high theft rates, and the numbers move with you. Move to a rural area with lots of deer, and the collision math shifts again. It's not personal, it's data. 36. When teen drivers get added to a policy, parents brace for the increase, but nothing quite prepares them for the actual number. Adding a 16-year-old to your policy can easily double the premium overnight. Some parents call and demand to know why. The answer is straightforward. Teen drivers are statistically the most expensive demographic on the road. They crash more, they crash worse, and the company is not guessing about this. It's decades of numbers doing exactly what numbers do. 37. On the other end of the age spectrum, there's a strange but real complaint from older customers who want their rates lowered because they barely drive anymore. Some carriers do offer low mileage discounts, but many people don't qualify or don't ask. Meanwhile, drivers over a certain age start seeing small rate increases again because accident rates climb after 75. This becomes a very tense phone call, and no amount of explaining actuarial curves has ever made anyone feel better about it. 38. A guy in Utah once tried to file a claim on his auto policy for damage caused by his own dog. The dog had eaten most of the driver's side seatbelt and a solid chunk of the steering wheel while he was inside a gas station buying a soda. He argued that comprehensive covers animal damage. The adjuster explained that your own pet is generally not considered the kind of animal the policy has in mind. He said his dog was almost feral. The adjuster still said no. 39. There's an entire category of complaint centered around the word betterment. When your 10-year-old car needs a new part after an accident, the insurance company pays for a comparable part, not a brand new one that improves the vehicle's overall condition. If the shop puts on a shiny new bumper, some of that cost may be shifted back to you because you're getting a better car than you had before the accident. Customers hear this once and lose their minds every single time. 40. Deep in the pile of every insurance company's complaint database, there are gems like the man in Illinois who wanted his insurer to cover a parking ticket, not damage from a parking incident. An actual paper ticket issued by the city for parking too close to a fire hydrant. He argued that his auto policy was for anything auto-related. The rep explained that legal fines are not a covered loss under any auto policy sold in North America. He wrote a letter to the state. The state agreed with the rep. 41. Diminished value claims are a fun corner of the industry that most drivers have never heard of. If someone else totals your almost new car and it gets repaired, the vehicle is now worth less on the resale market because of the accident history. In some states, you can recover that lost value from the at-fault driver's insurance. Almost nobody knows this. Almost nobody asks. And when they do find out, months later, they're furious at everyone involved, usually including their own agent. 42. Somewhere in a call center in Texas, a rep listened to a woman explain that she'd sold her car 3 months ago but never canceled the policy, and now she wanted every premium back. All of it. Every dime. The rep explained that she'd had active coverage the whole time, whether she used it or not. If something had happened, the policy would have responded. Coverage isn't a refundable subscription. You bought protection. You had protection. The fact that you didn't need it is the whole point. 43. Long before you ever file a claim, the company already knows almost everything about your driving. Motor vehicle records, prior claim history, credit-based insurance scores in most states, and increasingly telematics data from apps or plug-in devices. When people complain that their rate seems random, it usually isn't. It's a data-driven picture of how you specifically behave behind the wheel. Hard braking, late-night driving, and phone use all show up. Some people find that helpful, some find it deeply personal. 44. Rate increases after a not-at-fault accident are one of the most bitter complaints in the industry. People assume that if the crash wasn't your fault, your rate should not change. In some states, that is now the law. In many states, it isn't. Statistically, drivers involved in any accident, even as a victim, tend to have more accidents in the following years. Companies price for that risk. It feels deeply unfair. The math is not interested in how it feels. 45. A man in North Carolina once refused to pay his premium for 3 months because he was upset about how a previous claim had been handled. He kept driving. He kept assuming he was still covered because, in his words, they owed him. Then he ran a red light and hit a minivan. There was no policy in force. There was no coverage. There was, however, a lawsuit from the family in the minivan. He filed a complaint against the insurance company for canceling him. 46. Windshield claims sit in a strange little category all their own. In some states, comprehensive coverage pays for windshield replacement with no deductible at all. In others, you pay your regular deductible, which usually costs more than the windshield itself. Customers rarely know which state they live in, insurance-wise. They call convinced they're getting a free windshield. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. Either way, they'll be surprised by the answer, and either way, they'll consider it personal. 47. For a solid 15 years now, every major auto policy has included very clear language about racing, off-roading, and other misuse of the vehicle. Take your car to a track day, drive it into a river for fun, enter an amateur autocross event. All of that voids coverage for any damage sustained during the activity. And yet a certain type of driver will do exactly one of these things: wreck the car, and call the company with a completely straight face asking for a check. 48. Behind every strange complaint sits an even stranger claim story. Adjusters swap them at company conferences the way fishermen swap fish stories, and the details somehow keep getting weirder. Cars found in swimming pools, cars found on roofs, cars found halfway through the wall of a Taco Bell. Every single one of them started with a driver who was, quote, just backing out of a spot. Nothing in car insurance is ever quite as simple as the person filing the claim wants it to be. 49. Loyalty is a strange word in insurance. Customers throw it around like it should unlock discounts, waive deductibles, and free rental cars for life. In reality, staying with one company for a decade often means you're paying more than a new customer walking in the door today. Shopping your policy every couple of years is one of the smartest financial habits a driver can build. Most people never do it. Then they complain about the rate they've been paying for 11 years straight. 50. There's a specific complaint that lands in claims offices after every single major storm. Somebody parked under a tree during a hurricane warning. The tree came down on the car. The claim is legitimate under comprehensive. But then the customer wants the company to also pay for the tree removal, the fence damage, the lawn ruts from the tow truck, and the emotional distress of watching it all happen. Auto insurance covers the auto. That is genuinely the whole idea, right there in the name. 51. On one memorable afternoon in a call center in Arizona, an agent got a call from a man demanding to know why his premium had gone up after his son got a DUI. His son wasn't on the policy anymore. His son didn't live at the house. His son had been convicted 6 months earlier. The agent explained that once a household member has a DUI on record, the underwriting picture shifts, and if that person still has any access to the vehicle, the rate reflects it. He was not persuaded. 52. When a car gets stolen and later recovered, the process is nowhere near as simple as customers expect. Police impound fees, storage charges, damage from the joyride, and possible unrecoverable personal property all become a tangled mess. The auto policy pays for the damage to the car. Personal items inside go through homeowners or renters. Impound fees are usually the owner's problem. Everyone hates this arrangement, but it is the arrangement, and no complaint call has ever changed it. 53. Every so often, a caller will demand to speak to the underwriter directly. This is the insurance equivalent of asking to speak to the wizard behind the curtain. Underwriters exist. They are real people, and they will absolutely not be getting on the phone with a customer. Their entire job is behind the scenes, evaluating risk based on data. The person you can talk to is the agent or the rep. That's the door. Everything else is a locked room with a very large calculator inside. 54. A woman in Pennsylvania was convinced her policy should cover a mouse that had chewed through her wiring harness over the winter. She kept the car in an unheated garage. The mouse had built an entire condominium in the engine bay. The repair estimate was almost $4,000. Comprehensive actually does cover rodent damage in most cases, and the adjuster approved the claim. She then complained that they weren't paying for the emotional toll of driving a car once occupied by mice. 55. Something worth knowing about auto insurance in the United States is that state minimum liability limits have not kept up with medical costs. In some states, the minimum required to legally drive is $30,000 or less per accident for bodily injury. Modern hospital bills for a serious crash can easily exceed $100,000. If you carry only the minimum and cause a bad accident, you are personally on the hook for the rest. That is not a technicality. That is a life-changing reality. 56. Not everyone who calls to complain is wrong. Sometimes an adjuster misses something. Sometimes a claim is genuinely mishandled. Sometimes a company applies the wrong endorsement or misreads the policy. State insurance departments exist for exactly this reason, and they do force carriers to correct real mistakes all the time. But those calls sound different from the ones full of rage and misinformation. They sound like someone who read their policy and can point to the exact page where the company got it wrong. 57. A guy in Michigan once submitted a claim for damage to his car after he intentionally drove it through a fence to catch a raccoon that had been stealing from his garden. He described the entire event in writing, in detail, with photographs, as if this would help his case. The adjuster read the file twice to make sure it was real. Intentional acts are excluded on every policy. The claim was denied. He complained. Then he sent a follow-up email adding that he did, in fact, catch the raccoon. 58. One of the smartest things any driver can do is actually read the declarations page of their policy once a year. That single sheet lists every coverage, every limit, every deductible, every driver, and every vehicle. If something is wrong or missing, this is where you'll spot it. Most people file this document in a drawer next to their birth certificate and never look at it again. Then something happens, they pull it out, and they discover their coverage is nothing like what they assumed. 59. There's a running joke among adjusters that the best possible customer is the one who calls to ask a question before something happens, not after. Preventive calls save everyone time, money, and blood pressure. You can ask your agent almost anything. Does my policy cover a rental in Mexico? What happens if my adult child borrows the car for a road trip? Do I need extra coverage before I start driving for a delivery app? The answers are all right there waiting for anyone who bothers to ask. 60. At the end of the day, car insurance is a contract between two parties who are both trying to protect themselves from a very specific set of financial disasters. The company protects itself by writing everything down. The driver protects themselves by understanding what was written. When one side skips their part of the deal, the whole thing turns into a complaint call. And somewhere in a call center right now, an adjuster is picking up the phone and saying, "Thanks for calling. How can I help you today?" Car insurance is a contract. Nothing more, nothing less. Now here's the real question. Which one of these 69 people do you secretly think had a point? Not the worst one. The one you'd quietly defend at a dinner party. Name the number in the comments and defend it like a lawyer. Best defense gets read out loud in the next video. Smash like. Subscribe so you don't miss it.